Hello everyone. Thank you for joining me. I'm Witch Hazel. Now this book, I got it before my trip in late 2021 and it is my book of destiny. However, I am not that creative. I did not come up with that name. This is a Paper Blanks journal. And it is, what they do is they have these covers based off of famous paintings or historical books, and this one is based off of Voltaire's Book of Destiny. So that is the name of this journal if you look it up. So what did I do with this journal? For anyone who did not watch the manifesting videos, I basically got it into my head somewhere around fall of 2020 that I wanted to go travel. So I spent most of 2021 kind of fantasizing about it and saving up for it, and all I knew was that I wanted to travel in the fall and I wanted to travel back east. I wanted to go to Virginia, and there was a particular place I wanted to go to in Virginia. It was a hotel. And I just thought the history of this hotel was wonderful, but I'm sure what you really want to see is what's in this book, right? So let's get around to that. These are the light is over there. These are the pictures, some of the highlight pictures from my trip. I will see how I'm going to put those in here, and let's see what I have in here. Some of this is general. So for example, I have just pictures. Grace Kelly, Princess Grace, Audrey Hepburn, Coco Chanel. I love all these women and their sense of style and beauty. So that's kind of a reminder I wanted to put in here. And then we come up here again with Grace and Audrey. But other than that, most of this is for my trip. This is the first page relating to my trip. Now, when I was planning or attempting to make this trip happen, the thing I really focused on the most was where I was going to stay. I did not want to stay in a budget motel just because I didn't have the money for something better. I really wanted to get into the historic aspect of things and stay in historic spaces that were also elegant and beautiful that I would enjoy. So this was one of the first places I picked out, aside from that other hotel, which we'll get to in a moment. This is Linden Row Inn in Richmond, and what I originally had in mind was a few pictures and some scripting. But as you can see, I didn't get to the scripting part. I wasn't feeling it. So what I'm going to do instead is just add in additional pictures, and I will put these in here kind of scrapbook style, and then whatever space is left over, it looks like I'm going to have some space left over. My plan is then just to write in either some notes, some like a quasi journaling, or some gratitude, something. I haven't quite decided yet, but here is this page. Okay, and then the next page, after Audrey and Grace, this is the hotel that started it all. This is the hotel I wanted to stay at. It is the Jefferson, also in Richmond, and actually it ended up being, it's only like 2 blocks away from this place. Now, this hotel is quite expensive, and as I was going to stay for a month in Richmond, I could not afford staying here for the month, so I only stayed here the last 2 or 3 nights. And I found Linden Row as another spot that I thought I would enjoy. And up until right before I left, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to make it happen, because even though they were better priced than the Jefferson, it wasn't by much. Still, for a month, it was a lot. And I began to get down on my idea, on my manifesting, because I thought, well, am I going to have to get an Airbnb somewhere and do it that way? Because it would have been literally half the price However, I was able to, after some emailing back and forth, I found out that the Linden Row did have an extended stay rate, and they did grant me that rate. And at the end of all of that, the price per night was, I believe, only $1 more than the Airbnb I was looking at. So I essentially got the place I wanted for the price that I wanted, and I consider that nice manifesting. And then, of course, the big thing for me and this trip was I wanted this to be a rail trip. I wanted to take the train. I had never taken a substantial rail trip in the United States, and I thought it was about time that I did. And I had a few goals in mind. I wanted to have a room so I could sleep comfortably. I was really looking forward to the observation car, especially on the California Zephyr. I wanted to try the traditional dining, which is part of having a sleeper compartment. And these were the things that I knew I wanted. So in the end, what I did, I ended up testing out everything. I was in coach for 3 days. A couple of segments were business class, and then I did twice end up with a roomette, which was wonderful, and that meant that I did get to sit in the dining room. And then this one did not happen. I wanted to fly business class on Delta. So these are all pictures from Delta and their fancy business class. Now, I did take one flight during my trip, and it was through Delta, but it was a very short flight, and there wasn't much point in getting the more expensive ticket, so this is still on the docket for someday. Now, I do want to see, I think that's all for this trip manifesting. Yeah, these pages are all unrelated, so I'll get to these at some point later. Now, I do have to add in a few things because I focused so much on the travel that I wasn't really paying attention to things I wanted to see, places I wanted to go, and there were a couple. Specifically in Virginia, I wanted to go to Colonial Williamsburg and Monticello, which I did. So here are a couple of my favorite pictures from Colonial Williamsburg. The other thing that I absolutely wanted to do was to visit Monticello, which is the home of was the home of our third president, Thomas Jefferson. So I did that as well. And I have those pictures. It's a beautiful, beautiful place up on a hill, lovely gardens, and it has exactly that kind of look and aesthetic and history and that I just love. Now, I do want to point out with this one, there is an additional item that I'm quite proud of myself for with visiting Monticello, and that is, here we have the resident Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Bill Barker, and I specifically wanted to make sure that I saw him give his performance as an interpreter. He has been playing the role of Thomas Jefferson for decades now, and I have a book that he wrote. So I went and specifically wanted to hear him speak, which I did, so I'm happy about that. But on top of that, I wanted a book plate for the book. Basically, I wanted him to sign my book, but I wasn't going to bring the book with me and add weight to my luggage. So I looked around in the gift shop if he had book plates that could just be stuck into the book, and there were not, but I did pick up a little greeting card and did end up asking if he could sign that for me, which he did. And the reason I am so very proud of this is because I am very shy by nature. I do not like pestering people, and I have missed so many opportunities in life by being kind of afraid to do something or say something when there is something that's of interest to me that I want to make happen. So I really had to argue with myself for a while, because after this photo, then everyone else was trying to talk to him, and I wandered off over here in the gardens, and I basically made a big loop around. I was going to just let it go and leave the poor man alone, but I had to remind myself that no, you came with a specific thing in mind, and you're going to regret it if you don't at least try. So I talked myself back around and got the card for the book, so I'm very happy with that. Alright, and the last couple of things I do want to add in, places that were not originally in my manifesting idea, it just kind of all glommed together later, but I did end up going from Virginia down to Georgia, to Savannah, and I visited a friend there. And from there, from Georgia, I went on to Louisiana. I went to New Orleans for only 2 days because I really just was waiting on my train. That was the flight I took from Georgia to Louisiana. And I spent 1 day wandering around the Garden District, and this, I believe, was Anne Rice's home when she was in New Orleans. And then on the second day, I went down to the French Quarter and moseyed along there and had a wonderful time. So that was another stop along my journey. And finally, the last couple of pictures I have here are of train stations. So this was the station in Richmond. Here was my starting station in Denver, and this was in Los Angeles. I did from New Orleans, I went to Los Angeles and got to stay with my family a little bit, and from there I went up to Portland, and then I headed back around to Union Station again, to Denver again. So what I'm going to do next, now that you've got the travel story, and if you would like to see more travel pictures, get a little bit more of that, I did post several things on Instagram if you're interested. So what I will do now, I think, is glue this all in so that